Hi, I'm Vicky and this is the Apprenticeship Hub podcast, and I'm joined today by Dan from Portakabin, who's an apprentice, and we're just going to have a little bit of a chat about what an apprentice is, what an apprentice does. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Hello. So first of all, what apprenticeship is it that you're doing?
So I work for the design and engineering department. So I'm a product development apprentice. I go to AMRC Training Centre in Sheffield, where I complete a manufacturing technology degree. So that's within the 20% of my educational time within the company. Every Thursday we travel down. The other 4 days I do office-based tasks for product development team and the product specification team.
All sounds very interesting. So a degree as well, so a higher level apprenticeship.
Absolutely, yes.
Well,
it's a level 6 apprenticeship.
Right, okay, wonderful. And so why did you choose the apprenticeship route then, especially kind of that degree route?
Yeah, so the sort of last 2 years of my school were in my bedroom, basically. My classroom became my bedroom, locked in. Yeah. It was pretty minging, to be honest, and I just wanted a different route, anything that could avoid another 3-4 years trapped in a classroom.
Yeah.
And historically I've sort of been working from the age of 11, 12 with my hands. I worked on farms and sort of always doing construction projects with my dad, so any chance to sort of apply that hands-on information and knowledge while also getting an academic aspect was just exactly what I wanted. And I remember it was sort of one evening at about 1 a.m. It was lockdown, so time didn't really exist.
It didn't matter.
I got sort of 7 texts in a row from my mum, and they were all links to apprenticeship applications. And I had always been under the sort of wrong misconception that an apprenticeship was just, in trades or a lower level kind of GCSE A-level equivalent. And I'd never heard of a degree apprenticeship. No one in my school had heard of a degree apprenticeship, which is a whole issue in itself, I think.
It is.
And after we sort of both looked through them the day after, obviously, because it was 1 a.m. and I'm not as mad as her. After we both looked through them, it seemed like a really good option. Everything weighed up in terms of being able to get the in-office experience, something I hadn't had before, hands-on in terms of the manufacturing facility, specifically at Portakabin. This really sung to me. And then getting an academic aspect, because it's nice to kind of have the two things parallel, where you can apply what you're learning at the same time, avoiding things like 3-year degree where, although you're getting an absolute plethora of information, you've got to wait to apply it. And I couldn't really cope with the thought of that.
Yeah. So just going back to then, so I was going to ask how kind of your friends and family reacted for you going down that apprenticeship route. I suppose you've already started, so it was something that was actually recommended by family.
Yeah, it was. It was once we knew what it was, definitely. So both my parents went, completely different. They were Cambridge musicians, so like the opposite of what you can imagine. And within that, we were always brought up musically as well, but there was no pressure to go into music professionally. Yeah. You could say kind of the opposite, because they know what it's like, especially now, arts are struggling, and they were going, just avoid it, get a good job, and to live up to the stereotype of, become an engineer. So it was always university in my mind. Not that I'd been forced to, but just by sort of, the cultural sort of dripping down. Yeah. And I had 5 places at university for civil engineering and sort of similar stuff like that. Okay. And then when she found it, it was kind of her pushing me. It was the opposite. It wasn't I had to convince them. There was no battle at all. And at the time I was working for, in fact, a Wakefield-based company, Mill Park Construction. I was working as a labourer there. I was there for about 4 months over the summer of 2021, I think, if I get that right. And so I was already kind of in the kind of the workplace where apprentices thrive, really. Yeah. So I'd already got a bit of an introduction to it. When it was mentioned to me as a possibility, it was perfect. It pays off financially. I think it would be crude of me not to come on here and talk about that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's a really important aspect. I think that's one of the bigger reasons why people go down the apprenticeship.
Absolutely. And it could be seen as a taboo, but the reality is it is a really good selling point. Yes. The fact that you go to university, and although university will get you onto many brilliant things, there is the idea of the debt that you leave with, which can deter many people. I think that's fair. But the fact that, you can earn a good salary and also have that debt cared for is a massive benefit, and something that I think a selling point, definitely. It's not the only reason, and I don't think it should be the only reason. If it's the only reason you're going into an apprenticeship degree, there's an issue there. It
shouldn't be the only choice, but I understand where you're coming from. I went to university and then I worked on the side of university to make the money, and that kind of doubles the time that you're going to need to take. It's definitely one of the big hurdles, and like I say, you come away with that debt. So I think it can be a priority at that time when you're making that decision, but it doesn't have to be the only reason.
And it was appealing as well. I'd worked for 6 years until I was 18, and then to kind of not earn would be quite a weird thing. Have to rely, have to go back on to relying on my mum, and it was very strange. So the setup that was given to me there was perfect. This is my specific journey, but we started in the office for a few weeks, and we went to Sheffield for 6 months. We did like a base level sort of amount of knowledge at the AMRC Training Centre. Okay. And that, that was brilliant fun. We did robotics, we did CAD, 3D printing, a massive multitude of stuff. But we were relocated for 6 months, lived in uni accommodation, really good fun.
Oh, okay.
And then, again, after that finished, I went back home in Leeds, was there for 2 months, then moved to York. So it's very busy. I mean, obviously this is just a personal circumstance. Not every degree apprenticeship has this kind of sporadic county to county journey.
Yeah.
But certainly can be pretty busy. January this year, just gone, was a very busy time, certainly. So you've got to be ready to make quite a few changes, relocation, if that's going from not doing all the work to doing a lot, it's a massive change. But if you find somewhere that suits you, Portakabin's a brilliant company to work for, kind of makes it worth it in the end.
And do they look after you? Do you have, because with apprenticeships you get like a dedicated mentor, so have you got a mentor?
Yes, I do. So my mentor, I think, can make it today, but he's brilliant. Yeah, a guy called Matt. I've had him from April this year, a bit of a switch over, and absolutely brilliant. He's there for providing, not only resources in terms of work, so always go to him with help. He'll reciprocate that with giving me work that then I go back to help to ask for help with. But in terms of sort of a well-being and just generic professional guidance is what I put on it, because I'm new to office jobs. I've worked on building sites, I've worked on farms, I've worked in jobs that you can get away with not wearing a shirt and in terms of but just the day-to-day stuff that kind of gets overlooked, because the engineering stuff you can learn from a book, really.
Yeah.
But it's quite hard to kind of adapt to an office lifestyle, especially I started there when I was 18.
Yeah.
Being you're 18, it's frankly immoral.
Well, 18 as well, and just coming out of a pandemic as well.
Yeah,
so like you say, it's
absolutely.
very, very different. So to be entering that workance, it is new, and you do need that additional support, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been here for 14 months now, started in last September, and the change that's sort of gone on is ridiculous, but he's certainly helped massively. As I say, not only with work, because he's supplied loads of that and given me loads of help, as do all the colleagues. It's not just, they won't turn you away when you ask. Some will give you more sarcastic answers than others, certainly, but yeah, it's a really brilliant thing having a good mentor, I think. And the system at Portakabin is that I think everyone has one.
Yeah.
So however high up you are, you've always got someone who's a bit more high up than you to go to a certain level, I'm sure.
Oh, that's fantastic. So doing an apprenticeship, then, do you want to describe kind of a typical day in the life of an apprentice working for Portakabin?
It's probably a bit easier to do a typical week, maybe, just because
I suppose your weeks will change as well as your days.
Exactly, yeah. Well, sort of a typical week is, and this is the same with every apprenticeship, especially degree apprenticeships, where 20% of your time is classed as off the job.
Yeah.
So off the job for me is I have a 10-hour, 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. uni day on a Thursday in Sheffield. So that's a busy one.
Yes.
And talking of Portakabin looking after us, it's a very nice setup. So on a Wednesday, I get the train down from York, stay over in a hotel, do the day, train back. It's very nice.
Yeah.
It makes quite a nice event out of what could be a pretty rough day, because by 4 o'clock I am thinking, when can we get this over with? So that's Thursday, which is all the academic stuff into one day.
Okay.
And then through the week it will be a mixture of team meetings. So I'm sort of split between two teams at the minute, between the development team who do trials, testing, things like that, and the specification team look after all the documentation for our buildings. The main project of work I'm doing is with them. So I go to their weekly meeting where we'll discuss, allocation of tasks that come in and the boring kind of weekly meeting stuff. And that's similar to the development stuff as well. But at the minute, a lot of my work is kind of, it's quite independent, because I've had a project running from April now, which is sort of depressing to think about because it's still going strong, which is just my own. So I don't have anyone, hammering down my neck saying deadlines, which is a great thing. So actually my day-to-day is, it's very fluid. It will be anything from doing bits of development work for the, like Matt, my mentor, he's got me doing some work on some windows at the minute. It's just some documentation he's filling out. Nothing exciting, but needs to be done to sort of forward on that piece of work. And then the project I'm doing is a lot of 3D CAD and rendering. Okay. So that pretty much takes up the bulk. Obviously within that, there's some revision time. We're coming up, we've got January exams.
Yes.
Again, this is bringing it all to the forefront of my mind, which is fun. We've got exams in January, so there'll be a mixture of university work in there. And then just sort of the little other tasks that you forget exist. Things like workshops come into play, and there's always, surveys coming round and regular office life, as I'd put it.
Yeah.
But it's fairly busy. We work on flexi time at Portakabin, which is a nice thing. So
good.
Sort of it's an if and when kind of basis, which is very nice. And the week slowly goes past you, and very quickly goes past you, in fact, and you look back and think, oh my God, where's it all gone?
Well, it's good that you say that, and that you've got that independent work and that you've got your own project, because I think a lot of the time people, when they think of an apprentice, they think, you know, they're a tea runner, you know, they're doing all of the little jobs
Absolutely.
nobody else wants to do. They're not actually getting in there and getting any real work done, and it's not, it doesn't sound like that.
Quite the opposite, yeah. So I can't lie, I was guilty of that at first. I was very shocked when I started to see that we were going to be doing actual work. Shock and disappointment all into one. It was a very, very tough day when I found out, oh, you've got projects now. What? Not paid to do this. I mean, I was, but so when I was given this task of essentially get that building there, it's 2D, make it 3D. Who's gonna do it? It was just off you go. Yeah. So there was no kind of, not that there wasn't any guidance. Guidance is absolutely there when I needed it. It was the perfect balance because there was no one pushing me too much that it was, you know, micromanaging. Yeah. It was very surprisingly independent, and I've had similar projects. You know, I'm trying to get a lot of work with the sort of digital engineering team. At the minute, we're doing some sort of data flow stuff to spread around the company in terms of like bid engines and things. And I'm thinking I'm actually doing real work. I mean, I've been in the office since April, so it's given me a chance to kind of get into the groove of it. But absolutely, if you're imagining that you're going to be sitting around making tea and you see that as a good thing, you know, get your hopes far down, because when you start, it is very busy. But it was a bit of a shock to the system. Yeah. So, you know, if anyone's watching this sort of thinking, is it, you know, because I have gone on about how mad it is, and yeah, it is. But if you find somewhere that you love, you find a job that you can find some interest in, it does really help, because it isn't unmanageable. It really isn't. You do still have free time. There was this whole idea when I started that I wouldn't be able to see my friends, my family, I wouldn't be able to do things. Of course you can. You absolutely can. You've got all the time in the world. It's just where you put it, you know. Yeah. Like my weekdays are pretty full, but then that means that you have the weekend and it's on its own. Yeah. So there's time management that comes into it.
Well, because you're working that week, you don't need to go get a weekend job because you're doing it all as part of your apprenticeship.
And that's the thing. So it is a good balance. You've got to be on top of it. And I was terrible at time management when I started. I think, you know, we all were. So people my age had no idea, because all through school, however good your school is, there's still an element of hand-holding. And when I left that, it was really bizarre, because like I said, when that project was handed to me, they just went, yeah, just do that. I was going, when? How? You know, you sort of feel really lost. And then to kind of build those techniques on your own, again, stuff like Matt, my mentor, really helpful with that, colleagues around me. You do learn a lot more than just the degree element. Yeah. The professionalism in the office really kind of drips down onto you. And you go through quite a cultural shift, really.
Yeah. How long's your apprenticeship then? How many years is it over?
3 years total. So the degree aspect is 3 years. So we've just started second year this September, and we're almost through onto the first term, which is quite alarming. And the way that it works, we've got the 3-year degree, and then afterwards we have a thing called an endpoint assessment, which is of course the sort of collation of all your documentation. You've got an e-portfolio online, and it all comes together so you can be accredited with the apprenticeship qualification as well as the degree. Yeah. They are separate, but the apprenticeship is reliant on having the degree first. Yeah. So it's sort of 3.5 years. Okay.
And after 3.5 years, plans from that point onwards?
I don't really want to be going anywhere. I think I found a very nice company that I'd like to stick with.
And you've got all that time of your apprenticeship to prove yourself. Yeah, but they'll probably not want to let you go.
We'd like to think so, you know. So I've got about just under 2 years left, really. Yeah. And at that point, the idea is that the role I'm in at the minute, which is kind of dotting about a bit, it gets a bit fine-tuned down into a position. Yeah. You know, instead of just being Dan Cullen, D&E apprentice, it will be something more substantial. Where I go is still up for debate. That's certainly what these couple of years are for, kind of choosing a place that I suit the best and that I enjoy. But the idea after the apprenticeship is to get a full-time position and really get out of the way in these 2 years while I have the chance to get a massive scope of the company. So I've already worked with 2 teams, you know, dabbled in others, but over the next couple of years, it'll be certainly a case of moving around as much as I possibly can.
It's good that you've got the opportunity to try all the different elements of the company. So like you say, you can pick where it is that you actually fit best and what suits you better. Absolutely.
So there are, you know, regular sort of workload meetings with my boss and sort of his boss above, and their concern is, you know, first of all, the question is always how are you, which is always a nice sign, and then where I'm being applied and where we can go from that. So we've got sort of another 6-month plan, 12-month plan after that. So we kind of have the scope of where I'm going. It's subject to change all the time, because obviously the nature of the business is that things get pushed back, things get prioritized. But the idea is that I'm kept in as much of the loop as they are, really. Yeah,
that's wonderful.
A very nice thing.
Anything else you'd like to mention or say?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Anything extra? Any key tips that you want to give to anybody wanting to go down this route?
I'd say I mean, if you're listening to this, you're already on the right route because you're looking into it. It's sad because you can't really reach out further than people are willing to look. If you're here already, try and contact companies directly, because I'd say there will always be a link. You know, we have talent specialists and apprentice sort of roles in our company that are specifically for this kind of outreach. If you contact a company directly or a training provider directly, they'll give you so much information. Go to open days. I mean, I know there's one, the place we go, AMRC, coming up in the next couple of days, but probably long gone by the time this is seen. But go to open days, get a chance to see what it's like. Talk to people within companies if you can get a contact in, and don't be put off by what I've said, which is slightly, goes against what I've been trying to say. You know, don't be put off by the workload. It is fun. If you get into this early, you're only missing sort of those 2-3 years of messing around, and you won't ever regret getting into a workplace sooner and sort of honing down on a specific job sooner, because it doesn't sort of limit your scope. You've still got the degree. Just because you're in the job doesn't mean that, oh right, I'm here for life. That's it. You know, you've still got all the career progression you could ever want, but it's certainly a case of contact people, ask them, you get testimonies, and just apply. Just really do apply, because you'll get a sense of it within the interview process. You'll get a sense of it within the application process. You don't have to do it. If you apply and then you get an interview, and then after you come out you find a bit more and think, oh, this isn't for me, that's absolutely fine. But just give it a go. You'll never regret having a go, at least.
Lovely. Well, it's been fantastic having you. The passion that you're showing for what you're doing is absolutely amazing.
Well,
so
thank you for coming along.